Hey up guys! So today's film that I'm discussing is Kasi Lemmons' new historical biopic Harriet, which stars British rising star Cynthia Erivo as the famous abolitionist and freedom fighter Harriet Tubman. I'll admit, as a Brit, my pre-existing knowledge of Harriet Tubman was quite minimal. I knew that she was a former slave who escaped and then helped other slaves escape to freedom using a series of networks and safe passages that were called the Underground Railroad, but that's where my knowledge stopped. After doing the research on her, I was amazed by just how much she accomplished. She was a conductor of the Underground Railroad, as in she was quite high in the ranks. She made 13 different 100-mile journeys there and back and helped 70 slaves escape to freedom, and never once did she lose any passengers. She served as a nurse, a scout, and a spy for the Union Army, and she was also the first black woman to ever hold a military leader position within the Union Army, and she also helped guide the raid at Comahi Ferry, where 700 slaves were liberated. And in her final years, she was an activist for the women's suffrage movement. After reading about all these amazing things that she had done, I was genuinely baffled as to how there's never been a feature film adaptation about her. But what's even more baffling is, now that I've seen Harriet, how did Kasi Lemmons manage to make this inspiring, trailblazing, black female icon story so dull and lackluster? Her story is anything but these things. But I walked away from Harriet feeling like this film didn't do her justice. The film is set between 1849 and 1863, and the film is split into 3 different acts, each chronicling a different version of Harriet which we observe, all played magnificently by Cynthia Erivo. In the first act, she's known as Araminta Harriet Ross, or Minty for short. Here she's in her early 20s and she works on this plantation in Maryland. Act 2 starts after she escapes from her masters and flees to the free state of Pennsylvania, where she meets abolitionist Robert Ross, who's played by Leslie Odom Jr., and there she adopts her middle name Harriet as her first. And in Act 3, she is known as Moses, which was a nickname that was coined after she helped so many slaves escape to freedom. This approach, which screenwriters Gregory Allen Howard and Kasi Lemmons have gone for, I can see why they would go for it, because it shows the gradual development of Minty becoming Harriet, becoming Moses, and that's a rich, interesting journey to go on. But the actual development of Harriet throughout the film is either lacking in some scenes or reduced to some juicy trailer sound bites in others. It really lacks substance. Cynthia Erivo as Harriet is fantastic. There's an intensity to her performance which is wonderful to observe, but her talents are wasted here. Don't get me wrong, Cynthia Erivo's performance is by far the best thing about this film. In fact, it actually makes it watchable. But where the script chooses to prioritize its focus feels misguided. There's a hefty amount of screen time dedicated to Harriet's spirituality. She was a religious woman and she had visions which she interpreted as messages from God, which helped her on her rescue missions. And while I respect the decision to show Tubman's faith, the film leans on it far too much. The film would have been far more interesting if it had shown Harriet for who she was, this ordinary woman who did extraordinary things, not as this chosen one with special powers. This over-reliance on divine intervention and these visions undermines Tubman's bravery and force of will. I get that Kasi Lemmons is trying to be respectful and truthful to Harriet Tubman's story, because it is well documented that she did have these visions and she credited them as messages from God. This is part of the Harriet Tubman lore. But the execution of the visions in this movie didn't work for me. It wasn't very subtle, and it was almost like they were using her visions as a crutch. The film also struggles with the characterization of its supporting characters. Apart from Janelle Monae, who continues to dazzle in these small but memorable parts, here she plays this lodger owner called Marie Buchanan. She's magnificent here, but everybody else in this film is rather forgettable. There's this one character called Walter, who's played by Henry Hunter Hall, who feels like he belongs in a stage production of Oliver Twist. He's this theatrical, Artful Dodger type character who witnesses a miracle and then becomes a changed man. There's no dimensions to him as a character, and when he does have this character development, it doesn't feel earned. Joe Alwyn as the plantation owner Gideon does the best he can with what he's got, but again, the script just doesn't offer him many opportunities to add substance to this character. We're programmed to instantly dislike him because he refers to Minty as a pig, and Gideon would have been a very interesting character to go a bit deeper with because he was raised by Minty. There's some clashing conflict internally there to explore, but This film just doesn't go there, or at least doesn't go deep enough with it. On the positive side, there were a few moments in this film which I thought were well executed. Like there's the scene where Harriet steps into the free state of Pennsylvania as a free woman just as the sun is rising, and it's this whole new chapter of her life, this new state of freedom that she's entering. And that was very well done. It was coupled with this lovely score from Terence Blanchard. I thought that was all well done together. But on the other side of the argument for the cinematography, the rest of the film doesn't have much flair in the way it's shot. It's all very generic, it's a lot of wide angles, and it just leaves the film feeling very diluted. To sum up, guys, Harriet is just about salvaged by a captivating performance from Cynthia Erivo. However, given the bravery and heroism of Harriet Tubman's story, this film fails to deliver any of that sense of heroism and courage that she had. The execution of this film feels flat, generic, and doesn't take any risks. The script is quite frankly boring in places and rigid. It's unforgivable that I could leave a film about someone as inspiring as Harriet Tubman and feel so underwhelmed by it. So let's ask those 3 questions. Firstly, would I watch this again? No, this is just a one-time watch. Second question, do I recommend it for you guys? I mean, as much as I want everyone to learn about Harriet Tubman, I don't know if this film is the best way to go about learning about her. This film reduces some of her biggest accomplishments to anecdotes, and it's such a sanitized version of her story. Cynthia Erivo's performance is the only reason I would recommend this film, because she is fantastic in it, but the film overall is quite a sluggish and bland watch, and so no, I wouldn't recommend it. And question number 3, what score am I going to give it out of 10? I'm going to give Harriet a score of 3 out of 10. There we go, guys, that is my review of Harriet. But remember, as always, this is just one bloke's opinion. I want to hear from you guys. Have you guys seen Harriet? Did you enjoy it? Because I really struggled with this one and I wanted to enjoy it, but just it wasn't working for me, this film. But would love to hear from you guys. Whatever you guys think about this film, be sure to let your voice be heard in that comment section down below. If you guys have enjoyed this video and think I might deserve it, consider hitting that thumbs up button. If you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram, you can find all those links in the video description down below. And of course, don't forget to click subscribe so you can stay up to date with all my latest content. As always, thanks so much for watching, guys. For more things related to movies, TV, and popcorn culture, I'm Luke Airfield, and I'll see you next time.